Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Hello.
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 All right. It looks like I've got about 5 or 6 participants from around the globe here. So welcome. Uh, welcome both to Wabash and to this webinar on the Wabash curriculum and choosing a fall schedule. Some of you have heard from me, hopefully all of you have heard from me already by email. My name's John Jump, and I am an associate dean and the registrar at Wabash. And during this presentation, I'll go over some information about how to put together a class schedule for fall. There are a few of my faculty and staff colleagues joining me for this webcast. One of them is Ms. Amy Weir. She is the Director of International Programs at Wabash, and I suspect some, if not all of you on this webcast right now have heard from Amy already. So welcome, Amy. Any opening thoughts there?
I just want to say hi, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person in August.
Okay. And then also we have Professor Todd McDorman. He is a professor of rhetoric at Wabash, and he may be some of your academic advisors. I'm not sure who's all joining us, but he will be an academic advisor this fall for a group of new students. And so we're glad Professor McDorman is here too. There may also be, I'm not sure, but along the way, there may be some other faculty advisors who join us via webcast the way you all are. So we will look forward to that if they decide to join us. A quick word about this presentation. A version of this was delivered at our Wabash 101 pre-orientation sessions in June, and the version we're going to go through today is intended primarily for those new students, many of whom are like yourself, who weren't able to come to campus in June. So this webinar is structured for questions to simply follow the presentation. So I'll go ahead and get started with this. And if you have questions along the way, I think what I appreciate you doing is making a note of them. And then when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll come back around and take the time we need to answer your questions. So let's get started. Okay. The goal for this presentation, by the end of it, you should be able to select your desired fall semester courses if you haven't done so already, and perhaps list them on a fall 2018 registration worksheet like the ones you have most likely already downloaded from our new student roadmap. You'll also understand a bit more about the Wabash curriculum and how it is comprised, and become familiar with the patterns of how courses are offered here and the terms we use to describe them. We'll go over ways that you can submit your course selections, and you'll want to share that information with your academic advisor and collaborate with him or her on your choices and any changes or adjustments you might make. And of course, again, we will take time at the end to answer questions. Okay. Now, some important points as we start. Receiving advice from your academic advisor is a key part of scheduling, And if you haven't already, you will be hearing from your advisor very soon. He or she will want to communicate with you by phone, email, or Skype to discuss your course selections. Your course selections may be submitted anytime, but registration confirmation will take place beginning August 1st. What we mean by registration confirmation is that in order to get to that point, you'll be required to continue to work through the new student roadmap as you have been and complete any remaining steps there. Very important among these steps, which I want to highlight at this time, are completion of the student health record and satisfaction of your financial obligations to the college. Registration confirmation won't take place until those two things are done. And it doesn't begin until August 1st. So you've got time, but you want to be especially aware of those two requirements. It sounds like Amy would like to add something here.
So if you're an international student, you should have received an email from me recently with pretty detailed response on how to complete your student health record. Like I noted in the email, it's very important for you to get this information to Nurse Lamb. And so if you have any questions while you're trying to work on your student health record, please address them to Nurse Lamb. I included her email address, and you've seen her copied on some other messages, but she's the one who can help you with that form. And now you have less than a month to work on it, and it will require probably a trip to your doctor's office. So just make sure you're working on this, and please do not put it off until later. You do need to work on this now as soon as possible. It's very important, as Dean Jump just told you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, once your registration is confirmed, you'll receive an email message in your Wabash email account that outlines your fall schedule, and it will also contain links to which you'll be able to buy the books or other required texts for each course. And finally, what I'd say right now is that an important thing to remember about choosing your courses is that it is an exploration process. There is a great deal of variety in our offerings, and you should approach scheduling in your first year with the intent of taking full advantage of the breadth of our course selections. Okay. Pause for just a moment here before I go to the next slide, because we've just been joined in the room by another of my colleagues, James Quill, who is a Senior Assistant Director of International Admissions, and many of you may be familiar with him already as well. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Hey, everybody.
Okay. Now, let's just begin by explaining some of the basics of Wabash curriculum and our offerings. Most of the courses that you'll see listed on the document you've received called Courses Open to First Year Students, and we'll talk more about that document a little later in this presentation. Most of those courses are valued at 1 credit and meet 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 50 minutes on each day. 1 credit at Wabash needs a little bit of explanation too. Wabash uses a credit rather than a credit hour or semester hour system, and a 1 credit course at Wabash is equivalent to 4 semester credit hours. So when we talk about you putting together a 4 credit schedule at Wabash, which is what our goal is by the end of this scheduling process here, that schedule would be equivalent to a 16 semester hour schedule at a different school, a school that used a semester hour or credit hour definition of their courses. Some of the one credit courses meet on a different schedule. They will meet just twice a week in 75-minute blocks. But either way, it works out to be 150 minutes per week in class. Your freshman tutorial that each of you are in is an example of one of the Tuesday, Thursday 75-minute courses. All of the tutorials meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9:45 until 11 a.m. There are some courses that are worth half a credit, or the equivalent of 2 semester credit hours. They usually meet on the same Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday schedule, but for half as many weeks. They'll meet 7 weeks instead of 14. Sometimes a half credit class will meet once a week throughout the entire 14-week semester, but that is less common. What you will typically see is the same basic daily, weekly schedule for those courses, but they only meet for half as many weeks. Okay? Now, to get started with your schedule, our goal is for you to pick a 4-credit schedule in the fall of your first year. No more and no less than 4 credits. Anything more than that is considered unwise for your first semester at Wabash, no matter who you are, a new student, a transfer student, no matter what. We tend to limit new students to Wabash to 4 credits in their first semester. This does not include things like music ensembles and other courses of that nature, other performance-based things that you might take for credit. You can take those in addition to your 4 credits, but generally speaking, 4 academic credits is the limit. Eventually, looking ahead here, you will need to earn a total of 34 credits to graduate from Wabash. Now, over a 4-year, 8-semester time frame, you can see that this divides up as 6 semesters of 4 credits plus 2 semesters of 5 credits. You may not end up dividing things exactly that way over your time here. Any combination that gets you to 34 credits at the end of the line here is fine. Also keep in mind that AP credit or transfer credit or other things you might bring with you that could give you advanced standing might accelerate your progress along that path. Okay. Now, let's talk a little more about those 4 fall credits. Already, all first-time new students have been either chose for themselves or have been assigned by this point to a freshman tutorial, and that is a 1-credit course. Some of you have also been assigned to a section of English 101, which is necessary to meet English proficiency requirements, and if that is true of you, then that will be another of your 4 fall credits. So you've already got 2 of them assigned. We would assign every student to take English 101 if we could, but we just don't have the time and the available staffing to provide that for everybody. So we approach it a couple different ways here. We give priority to our international students in placement in English 101. And then among the other students, we base it on entrance exam scores. And this year, the cutoff was more or less the equivalent of a 23 composite score on the ACT. People who scored at that level or higher were exempted from the English 101 course, and lower than that were placed into. let's see. The third point to make here is that you want to prepare for a total of 4 credits, which means you're going to be selecting either 2 or 3 additional ones, depending on whether or not you have English 101 on your schedule. And in addition to that, you want to choose an additional 4 or 5 credits to serve as alternates or backups in case any of your first choice selections don't work out because the course is full or for whatever reason. So you might think of this as picking a first string of courses and a second string of courses. Okay. Now I will talk briefly about placements, a little more detail on that. Last night, to each of you, and I hope you all received this, by email I sent your English, math, and foreign language placement to you via email. Again, if you have an English 101 placement, it will say so in that email and tell you at what time that course is going to meet. And that course has already been added to your schedule, just alongside the freshman tutorial. Now, foreign language placements, for some of you, may be at the 101, 102, or 103 level, or in some cases, the 201 level, maybe even higher, depending on your experience with the language. Now, this foreign language placement is based on the results of the online placement exam you took while you were working your way through the new student roadmap. It does not mean that you necessarily have to take the course that you were placed into. What it means is that if you continue study in that language, that's the course where you should start. You are welcome to take a new language that you've never taken before, in which case you'll start at the 101 level. And that's perfectly fine. So the placement should not be seen as a directive to take that course necessarily. It's just the course where you should start if you're going to pursue that language. Okay? The mathematics placement is similar in that respect. You might see a Math 010 or Math 10 as we call it placement, a Math 111, Math 112, Math 223, or in a few rare cases, something even higher than that. The results of the math placement exam, which is another one that you would have completed on the new student roadmap, is an indicator of your readiness for college calculus, which is the Math 111 course, Calculus 1. If you received a Math 10 placement, then that indicates that you need to take a pre-calculus course before you go into calculus. But there's an important caveat to this here. There are only certain major programs at Wabash that require you to take calculus at all. For instance, economics or financial economics, majors in the natural sciences, such as chemistry, physics, and of course mathematics would require you to take calculus. Pre-med or pre-engineering students will need calculus too, and ideally those students would receive a placement at the Math 111 level or higher coming into Wabash before beginning to pursue one of those pre-professional programs. But for all other majors at Wabash, there is a path through them that does not require calculus at all, and that is something to keep in mind. So similar to what we said about the foreign language placement, calculus, your math placement is not a directive that you have to take that course. It's the course where you should start if you're going to pursue that track, okay? If you do want to major in one of the majors that requires calculus, and you got placed into Math 10 and want to put it on your fall schedule, that's fine. There's an additional step involved in getting admitted to that class, however. You need to not only put it on your fall schedule, but email one of our math professors at the college, Professor Josh Cole, and I've got his email on the screen here. Email Professor Cole for permission. That is an additional required step for enrollment in just the Math 10 course. No student can be enrolled in Math 10 without Professor Cole's approval, but it's only in that instance where you want to take Math 10 that that is necessary. Okay. Now, here is a course selection worksheet similar to what you've downloaded, and I just put it up there on the screen to indicate to you what document I'm talking about when I refer to the course selection worksheet. But you can use this to fill out the selections you want and either submit them this way to your advisor or use them to fill out the information on the submission site that I'll talk about in just a couple minutes here, where you can submit things online. Okay. Now I'm going to just very briefly go over this part, the 3 pillars of our curriculum. There are 3 main components or 3 legs to our curriculum, which you need to be peripherally aware of right now. The required freshman courses in the Liberal Arts Foundation. Those foundational courses are the freshman tutorial that you're already in, and then there's a companion course that you will, that all first-time new students will take in the spring called Enduring Questions. And you will take both of those. Those are the required freshman courses. The distribution requirements, which provide breadth to your liberal arts degree, and I won't go through all of them, but you can see those 8 different categories right there. And in parentheses, how many credits are required from each of those areas is listed. And then finally, your major and your minor, which are a series of related credits concentrated in one department or program to give you subject matter expertise in those particular areas. So there's the foundational courses, distribution requirements for breadth, and the major and minor for depth. Okay. This information can be found in our academic bulletin online. You do not need to focus heavily on the sum total of your major, minor, and distribution requirements at this particular stage. Again, the only reason I bring it up now is as a way of emphasizing that just about any course you choose for fall is going to fit into one of these categories and will therefore be of use to you in the service of your graduation requirements. Okay. There is a new student sample schedule document I hope by now most of you have seen because you downloaded it from the new student roadmap along the way. If not, you can still do so. The link is still out there. On this slide, I've shown a snapshot of the document. So you, again, just so you'll know which one I'm talking about. When I talk about new student sample schedules, it's the document that looks kind of like this. Keep in mind that these sample schedules are not meant to be prescriptive. There are all kinds of possibilities for any student, no matter what his interest is, to choose for a 3rd or 4th course to round out his schedule. And the courses in these examples are not the courses that a student with the particular interest listed has to choose. This document also does not include all possibilities. It is just meant to include a few representative samples of schedules that a new student with a particular interest might choose. Another document that I hope you've downloaded by now is the courses open to first-year students for fall 2018, and I made some reference to that earlier. Like the sample schedules, it's part of the new student roadmap and will remain available there for anyone who hasn't acquired it yet. This lists just about all the offerings that you have to choose from as a first-time new student. You'll notice that these courses are mostly at the 100 and 200 level. The document lists meeting times, instructors, locations, and so forth. You will especially want to note a couple of columns on that sheet, the available seats column and the distribution code column. Available seats will tell you how many seats are left in a particular section, so you can gauge your relative chances of getting into that course based on how many open seats there are. And the distribution code tells which of the distribution requirements that course can meet or work towards. Again, that goes back to the 3 pillars of the curriculum slide where all the distribution courses or requirements are listed. Almost all new students are going to choose their schedules from among our 100 and 200 level offerings, but a few will come with advanced standing, either through transfer credit or credit by exam. If you need to look at the selection of higher level courses, because you come in with that advanced standing, you can refer to the registrar's webpage, and I've got the link for it right there. It's wabash.edu/registrar, and look at the fall 2018 course listings. It's especially important for students who do come in with that level of advanced standing to work closely with their advisors to pick the appropriate courses for them. Okay, and again, this is just a snapshot of a couple of pages of what that first year students, courses open to first year students document looks like. So when I'm talking about this document, I'm talking about the one you've seen that looks basically like this. Okay. Now, here's how to submit your course selections. There are 2 main options for this. You can complete the new student registration worksheet, like I showed you an example of a couple of slides ago, and return this to your advisor. And that would probably be a useful tool to use, even if that's not the way you ultimately submit your courses, because it's helpful to just sketch them out and look at them in that kind of scheduled format. We have also created a new student scheduling form online, and here is the link to that. You may want to take that down. I will also send it out to all students for whom we don't currently have documentation of a schedule on file, and the link will also be available on the new students' website eventually. Now, probably as soon as Monday. Now, your advisor may have been in touch with you already and given you different instructions on how to submit your choices. And really, any method that works for both you and your advisor is ultimately okay. The important thing is that you have approved selections by your advisor in place and loaded into our registration system in time for the August 1st registration. Okay, so here's what a completed worksheet might look like. This is for a imaginary student named Wally Wabash here. His placements, we assumed, were Spanish 201 and Math 10, and those were his academic interests up at the top of the selection grid. Anytime you add a foreign language course to your schedule, such as Wally has at 8 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he's added the Spanish 201. There is a corresponding lab section that you need to add as well. So he's added the Spanish 201 lab for Intermediate Spanish 1 at 3:10 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is also true of the natural science courses, biology, chemistry, physics. They will have a corresponding lab section that you need to add as well. So languages and science, keep in mind that you need to add a lab. Okay. Wally has decided to take the English 105 and 106 courses, and those are examples of half semester courses, like we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. The English 105 meets Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 o'clock in the first half of the semester, and English 106, which is Intro to Short Fiction, meets in the second half on that same schedule. So, 105 begins at the beginning of the semester and ends at the midpoint at fall break. English 106 picks up and begins after fall break and continues to the end of the semester. And each of those is worth half of a Wabash credit. Rounding out Wally's fall schedule is a Political Science 141 course, which matches an area of interest for him as a pre-law aspiring student. And that course meets at 8 o'clock until 9:15 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's listed in that section of the worksheet. Now, down towards the bottom of the sheet, you have Wally's backup choices, and he has some good and diverse choices. A different political science course, for instance, in case the one he wants the most is closed. A philosophy class, which is something he's never taken before, and doing that for exploration. Music class, a lab science in biology. Again, remember, science courses require the addition of a lab as well. The Rhetoric 101 public speaking course is on there. And if any of his first choices don't work out, he will be okay to take any of those alternate courses too. And that's the purpose of listing the alternate. And in Wally's case, he's noted which course an alternate is meant to serve as an alternate to. So, for instance, in that first position, he wants to take the PSC 111 course if he can't get into the PSC 141 course. Okay. Now, I'd like to just close things out by talking about some common myths of scheduling classes. There are many ideas about scheduling that students tend to bring to this task, and some of them need to be addressed. And we already kind of talked about this one, that you have to take calculus in order to graduate from Wabash. But we know that that is not true. You don't even have to take math necessarily to graduate. I mean, there are ways to get to a Wabash degree that don't even require mathematics, much less require calculus. Another one is that you have to major in biology or chemistry to be a pre-med student. Not true. Many pre-med students do major in these things, and if you're considering pre-med, hopefully one of the reasons is that you really like biology or chemistry, because you are going to take it, but you don't have to major in it. You can major in anything and be pre-med. In fact, one of our 2018 graduates who's going to medical school is a very prominent theater major who starred in many plays on campus. As long as you're taking the appropriate required courses for med school admission along the way, you can be a pre-med student no matter what your major is. Here's some myths relating to the study of economics and its relationship to business. There is a myth that economics is the same as business, and that to go into business, you should major in economics. and also that Wabash has a business major. All three of those statements are false. All of those statements are just not so. Just like pre-med, you can major in anything and ultimately go into business. And at Wabash, you'll meet plenty of alumni with a very wide range of majors who have become successful businessmen. It's also important to distinguish between these two programs. Economics can be a major or a minor program at Wabash. Business, however, is exclusively a minor program. They do not have to be taken in combination. And in fact, if you were to major in economics or financial economics, you might well be ill-advised to minor in business in addition to that. That's the kind of conversation, though, that you should have with your academic advisor about those goals. And a final myth is that you won't get a job if you major in humanities disciplines like English or religion, rhetoric, philosophy, or theater. There are two realities I'd like to pose there. The first is that placement rates for our humanities majors are at least as good as they are for social science and natural science majors. And second, that post-Wabash success has very little to do with what you major in or any particular courses you've taken at all. It really has more to do, if anything, if it's related to academics in any way, it's got to do with how successful you are at the path you choose at Wabash. You don't have to take my word for this. Our Office of Professional Development would be more than happy to provide you statistics to back up what I'm saying on placement rates for humanities majors. Okay. Now, as final thoughts, don't overstress about course planning in your first year. Just about everything you choose can count. Worry more about where your courses will take you after these 4 years and how they will, or worry less about where the courses will take after these 4 years, and be more concerned now with how they will help you grow during these 4 years. And finally, just to reiterate one final time here, your advisor is the best resource available for curricular questions. So your advisor will be reaching out to you very soon if he or she hasn't already. Get to know your advisor and build that relationship now because these are the people who can help you the most. And if you have questions, we can help. Let us know what we can do. There's an email address and phone number for us, and there will be an opportunity to refer back to a recording of this webinar that will be available on the new students website very soon. Okay.